So I want to talk about, well, it's Labor Day weekend. It's the end of summer. And so I've been thinking about the summers of my youth, which were quite unstructured. But I did have swim lessons for many years, starting at a very young age. Some of my earliest memories, we lived in York, Maine, York Harbor, not York Beach, but York Harbor. And this was when I was before first grade. I remember going down to the ocean. Sometimes we'd be in a pool, but sometimes, I guess, whatever the schedule of the pool was, sometimes we'd just be in the ocean, and it was cold. I mean, and we had to wade out there into the ocean and just practice breathing. I didn't really enjoy it. I came to sort of dread the cold. And then when I was in first grade, we moved up to Belfast, Maine, further up the coast, and there were more swim lessons, always in a pool at that point. But I had these lessons for years, and I never passed beginner swimmer. I was always pre-beginner. According to the Red Cross had these guidelines, and it was always the back float. I couldn't do the back float. I tried to do the back float, and I would just, my legs would drop down, the water would come up my nose, and it was miserable, and I couldn't get it year after year. I mean, I took beginner swimmer lessons for years. Sometimes the swim teacher would come and put their hand under my back, and I would experience that, as sort of, I'm floating. But then they'd take their hand away, and I would sink again. Years later, I learned that some people sink. I'm a sinker. I'm still a sinker. I can sit on the bottom of the pool. I did eventually learn how to swim after I joined my high school swim team, because my high school was so desperate for swimmers that you didn't have to know how to swim to be on the swim team. And I did learn. But I still remember that fear of the cold water, and that fear of just failure. It's that fear of sinking, the water up the nose, and that kind of tremulous expectation that I was going to sink. He has said, "I will never leave you or forsake you." So we can say with confidence, "The Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid." I still have fears, not about swimming, but I still get anxious. I still get nervous. I have fears, the usual ones like health, finances, politics. I still have these fears. And I know that Jesus has his hand on my back, holding me up. But sometimes that's not as present as I would wish it to be, not as secure. What Jesus is commending is faith. Faith that frees us to be generous. Faith that enables us to leave anxiety behind. Faith that creates in us a confidence about the future, sustained and supported by God. A faith that enables us to float, to trust that God will sustain us, a hand holding us afloat. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarm. Leaning on the everlasting arms. I think at times everybody struggles. Everybody is struggling. Everybody's looking for their place at the table. Trusting that hand can be a struggle, especially for us sinkers. And I think we learn to trust that presence in this community, in our worship, our communion with God and with each other, in our fellowship, and we experience it and name that and call it out. What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. We float by finding the presence of God in our lives, which is not as obvious as we hope sometimes, but it is enough. In the mornings, I usually take a walk. We live over by Community Park School, and there's that sort of track around it. I'm sure some of you know it. And it's the same crew most days. I mean, I see dog walkers and joggers, and it's almost, I get to know some of them. But there's a guy more recently who I see almost every morning, and he's usually talking loudly. I thought to himself, but it turns out he has a phone. You know, he's one of those hand-free. I do that all the time. He has a hand-free. And as we were crossing paths the other day in opposite directions, you hear like stray comments. And I could hear him say, "Pray for forgiveness and strength." I think he was talking about himself. I'm not sure. But pray for forgiveness and strength. I thought, well, that's a good idea. I should do that. We all need forgiveness. We all need support. And we need the strength that comes from that support. The support to keep us ourselves afloat and to reach out to others to help them float. We heard a lot about humility in the readings, too. I think we need a humility-based compassion. Maybe with small steps. The food collection that we have here, or the hospitality to strangers. God is working with us on this. Not as a distant judge, not as an impersonal standard that we must measure up to, but as one who holds us, supports us, and helps us float. Amen.